Hello everybody, it's Wyron here with a bit of Total War Warhammer quick match gameplay. This time around I'm playing as the Greenskins against Brettonian, led by Okritos on the map MP Crossroads. So right off the bat you can see I did a pretty conventional Greenskin build. I saw that my opponent had originally decided to run Vampire Counts, and then last second switched up to Brettonian on me. So I figured I'm not going to bring a Flying Lord. I'm going to go cheap, and instead of bringing Azak or an Orc Lord, I'll just bring Skarsnik, because he does have anti-large, and originally I've been assuming it would be Vampire Counts, and then seeing it was Brettonian, I figured I'm not going to bother switching. He does have anti-large. He does have poison. And of course he has all those fancy upgrades. He can reduce he can increase missile resistance. He does have Tricksy Traps, which increases the leadership and charge bonus, all those sorts of abilities. So a bunch of strong abilities. Then he's backed up by a Night Goblin Shaman coming in with Itchy Nuisance and Sneaky Stabbing, as well as, of course, Sneaky Stealing, because I was assuming that there would be some sort of spellcasting going on. Unfortunately, I did not bring out in Gorkle Fix It, and I was definitely regretting that this game. Then my front line is mostly Savage Orcs. Originally I'd be expecting Undead, later seeing Brettonian, but these guys will do very well against either of those factions, infantry. And then in the center, Night Goblin Fanatics, because I had some leftover points to spend, and they do provide poison, and of course those ball and chain gobos will disrupt any formations fairly well. Then my back line is a mix of Black Orcs, Savage Orc Big Guns, and Crimson Killers. Once again, Crimson Killers are really good against low-end infantry, though they do also come with armor piercing. Black Orcs mostly there to just kill any heavily armored infantry, and then the Savage Orc Big Guns just there to give me a little bit of foot-based anti-large. In the very back, I do have the Rusty Arrows over here. And my two cavalry contingents are Orc Boarboy Big Guns and Goblin Big Boss in each. I actually dropped the Slippery on the Goblin Big Bosses, so they're not particularly mobile. My opponent's comp definitely caught me by surprise here, and I was definitely a little worried. Right off the bat, we have King Lewin over here. We have two Royal Hippogriff Knights, and of course, against most Greenskin units, especially once Frenzy wears off, the Savage Orcs, they're susceptible to terror, and all these guys do cause terror. And then three Royal Pegasus Knights, or actually one Royal Pegasus Knight and two normal Pegasus Knights out here on the flanks. So my opponent has gone all Flying Goon Squad, and in the corner he has a Paladin on a horse who's just camping out. And Orcs don't really have much that can catch him. Like the cavalry that can catch Brettonian cavalry is either too weak to do much about it, like Goblin Wolf Riders, or yeah, too strong to really care. So or sorry, yeah, they're just too slow. So anywho, here you can see the first cycle charge from the Royal Pegasus Knights going in. Now fortunately my opponent did not bring and it does do a bit of damage to Savage Orcs, takes off 6 models, so definitely not too happy about that. Fortunately though for me, my opponent does feint here, tries to go for the archers, but then thinks better of it, which is definitely the smart idea here, the right move. And I'm peppering away at Lewin, which is definitely a bit of a waste, because Lewin has regen, so I'm not really going to be able to whittle him down for good very much with the Rusty Arrows. And yeah. So now my opponent is just kind of heckling me, harassing me. I'm trying to get the Goblin Big Bosses on him because I need poison to slow these guys down, to try to bog them down. Now fortunately here my opponent overcommits a little bit and gets encircled, and immediately you can see the Orcs just start putting a beat down on these guys. The Royal Pegasus Knights don't have armor piercing. They're going to do pretty poorly against the Black Orcs, and unfortunately I don't get a full envelopment here, but these Pegasus Knights take a lot of hurt very, very quickly. Out here in the front, one of my Savage Orc Big Guns wandered off a little too far. I was distracted over on this end, and it takes quite a bit of hurt before Lewin and gang is chased off. And unfortunately, my opponent, he didn't bring Lore of Life. Generally, if you're doing this sort of high-end, low model count Goon Squad type build, it's smart to bring a Lore of Life caster. It would have probably been best to just bring a lady on, or a damsel on a unicorn with Lore of Life instead of the paladin, in my opinion, for the foot contingent, because then she could have been healing these up. But anywho, I do try to cast an Itchy Nuisance down over here. These guys have already taken off though. The big guns have taken quite a bit of a mauling, 15 models down, and I'm not really able to put the hurt down on these guys. They basically have to make a mistake. I'm trying to regroup my infantry and box in the paladin, because if I can kill the ground forces, they will be forced to come down and fight me. So I'm just kind of moving over there slowly but surely. Skarsnik was unfortunately all the way out here on the flank. I'm trying to pull him back in. I'm just kind of trying to kind of zone these guys away with the Pegasus Knights away with the Goblin Big Boss, hoping that the fear of poison will keep them honest, but it's really not doing. These Savage Orcs are getting rushed, so I immediately turn around and try to go pincer these guys before they can disengage. Unfortunately, the Big Boss keeps going because I wasn't paying attention to him, and so yeah, here you can see there was a little bit of a hurt going down, but not nowhere near enough to make it worthwhile. And anytime these Royal Hippogriffs are kind of sitting around, not doing very much, this Goblin Big Boss wandering off, which is really not good. That may open him up to a very easy gank. So I'm going to pull him back shortly. And these Royal Pegasus Knights, they've already taken a few models down. They've lost 4 models between them, but they've been doing a lot more damage to me. Fortunately, my Savage Orcs are pretty dirt cheap. The big guns not so much, but I'm trying to kind of regroup my army. These guys have fallen behind and are now lagging compared to the rest of the army, and that's a big problem when my opponent has this many quick units that can just lay the smack down on me. And here we can see Lewin dives into the Black Orcs. Fortunately, Black Orcs are immune to psychology. Otherwise, these Terror Bombs would have probably shredded him a long time ago. But now I'm able to kind of collapse on these guys from all sides. The Royal Hippogriff Knights have very low melee defense and armor. So if I can get on top of them, they will definitely take quite a bit of a beating. But I'm not able to just quite run them down, and they do manage to disengage. They are still a pretty mobile unit. They have 85 speed in the air, so they're rather hard to catch. Interestingly enough, Beakus does have 100 speed. Never realized that. Pegasus Knights are of course very quick, and they're trying to just kind of harass me, pick at my flanks, and just make themselves a general nuisance. These Black Orcs on the tail end here are in a bit of trouble. My opponent does decide to commit here against the Crimson Killers. Actually, no, never mind, he doesn't. He makes a quick feint and then backs off, and I'm not really able to collapse on him. I really need the Black Orc, or sorry, not the Black Orc, the Orc Boar Boy Big Guns and the War Bosses to get, or the bosses to get on top of my opponent so they poison him, I can slow him, and then beat him down with that anti-large bonus. Because otherwise they're just going to keep force pathing through my infantry. And now, I'm not sure, perhaps thinking he has an opportunity here, my opponent does decide to dive in on these Savage Orcs. Perhaps it was a misclick, I'm not entirely sure. But now he's getting surrounded by the Crimson Killers on one end. Skarsnik is coming in, Skarsnik's going to apply poison. And he actually, I think he one-shots Pegasus Knights, because he does a lot of damage. He does a 420 plus with sorry, 390 with armor piercing and bonus versus large. So these Pegasus Knights are just falling apart, they're trapped, they're in a very, very bad spot. Even the Night Goblin Shaman is coming in to lay a bit of a beat down. I do try to pull his big boss back. But I don't think he's quite able to make it in time. But as you can see, these Pegasus Knights have dropped a lot of models, down to 7 now, and they might lose a few more before they manage to disentangle themselves from this mess. Pegasus Knights don't have as much mass, and they don't actually cause fear. So they're pretty. If they get caught, they're in a lot of trouble. They're like a cavalry unit, but without a lot of models, and they're definitely very susceptible to that. Now I guess my Rusty Airs. I'm just trying to use these Rusty Airs to kind of slam my opponent down. Now my Black Orcs are once again being pressured by Lewin and his goon squad of Royal Hippogriffs. And the Royal Hippogriffs have a lot more mass. So as you can see, they're just kind of able to wreck these Black Orcs and then just plow onward. And I do get some units on them. I do get some Boar Boys on them. And they're trying to kind of put the smackdown on these Royal Hippogriffs. They are doing a little bit with their charge bonus activated and all that sort of stuff. But it's not really enough. The Royal Hippogriffs are just able to force path their way out of there. But now I'm slowly advancing my Rusty Airs. I'm just trying to make as much use of the Rusty Airs as I can. Definitely regretting not bringing either Gorkul Fix-It to slow my opponent down, or more shooting units, because having more Goblin Archers would have definitely been useful here. They could have been applying poison from long range, that sort of stuff. My opponent does pull Lewin and the Hippogriffs clear, and the Goblin Archers would actually be pretty good against the Royal Hippogriffs, because they only reduce their damage by about 30 to 60%. Because they have no armor and no shields, or very little armor and no shields. So, and I don't believe Royal Hippogriffs... Yeah, Royal Hippogriffs don't have the built-in physical resistance of, say, Royal Pegasus Knights. But I'm slowly but surely trying to, like, kind of push forward, sniping away at these Royal Pegasus Knights with the Rusty Airs, when they stand too still for too long, too close to my army. And in the meantime, just kind of pushing my forces forward, just trying to get on top of this guy. And as you can see over here, there's actually a Royal Hippogriff who got stuck on the ground, on ground level, and is now killing off these Orc Boar Boy Big Guns. I was wondering where my Boar Boy Big Guns are going, why they're dying, like randomly losing models. This was it. This Royal Hippogriff is just stuck here fighting a random Black Orc, a Savage Orc, and a Orc Boar Boy. So that's a little weird, but it is what it is. As you can see, he finally kills him. But yeah, actually, even here you can see it takes quite a bit of damage from fairly cheap Orc units. Unfortunately, I do let my infantry get a little bit overextended here, so now I'm trying to pull them back. It's very hard to kind of maintain cohesion when you're constantly darting back and forth to try to defend backline units. My opponent does have Lewin here, perhaps sensing a chance to get after Skarsnik. And as you can see, Lewin does a lot of damage to Skarsnik. Now the Royal Hippogriffs are going in, and they're going to be a big threat to Skarsnik. The Sword of Corone does go down, dropping Skarsnik to be very susceptible to damage. But fortunately, the Boar Boys are here. The Goblin Big Boss is here, and they're immediately swamping these Royal Hippogriffs, just surrounding them and putting this smackdown on them. Skarsnik, I forgot to pop his abilities on him, and that was definitely a big mistake because I could have capitalized on this situation a lot more if I'd popped the wall and those sorts of stand your ground and all that sort of stuff. Over here, Royal Hippogriff Knights are getting torn apart very quickly, and unfortunately, as you can see, they still have a lot of HP. So if there's a lot of life through growth here, they could definitely keep these guys in the fight for a very long time. But my opponent hadn't invested in that. Now these guys are getting torn up. Wall and stand your ground is going down, and these Royal Hippogriffs are just not having a good day. They're surrounded, they're bogged down. Their big problem is that while they do have more mass than Pegasus Knights, so they can force bat through, they're also slower, and they take a much longer to take off. They need a much longer run to get off the ground. So if you can poison them and slow them down and prevent them from walking away from your units, then they will never be able to take off, and you can simply run them down into the ground. So that's an entire unit of Hippogriffs gone there. Now my opponent's down to just his Pegasus Knights, all of which are badly mauled. King Lewin over here, who's in full health because he does have the regen. And these Royal Hippogriffs over here are down to 5 models. So we're going to throw things to fast forward a little bit as there's a bit more posturing. I'm trying to sort of spread my units out over here. And my opponent does dive Lewin in, and I immediately try to jump on with the Savage Orcs, who will do a little bit of damage, and they don't get tear out. This is the key thing here with the Savage Orcs. They have psychological resistance as long as their frenzy is up. Initially, they do start failing and falling apart here, but as I collapse on these Pegasus Knights, collapse on these Royal Pegasus Knights are going to have a terrible day. They're not going to be able to get out. They have very little armor. They actually have fairly high melee defense with all. I guess that's stand your ground going down, but they're not going to be able to survive this. They're just going to get torn apart. One of the units gets, I think, annihilated to man or shattered, and the other one is down to 1 model, which bravely takes off. And now Lewin is in a real bit of a pickle here. He's trapped. He's getting poisoned, I do believe. Yeah, he's getting poisoned by the goblin big bosses. Getting swamped by Savage Orc Big Guns, who do have an anti-large bonus, and he doesn't have a lot of armor when he's on Beacus. So here he's just getting destroyed, taking a lot of damage. I'm trying to get Skarsnik in there, because Skarsnik, of course, with that bonus, is going to be able to do quite a bit to him. And now Lewin is just kind of falling apart. I do believe, I'm not entirely sure what it is here. I think Sneaky, Itchy Nuisance, yeah. And then the Goblin Big Boss on top, and as you can see, and this is actually Lewin, because has a higher speed than the other Hippogriffs. And despite that, he's not able to take off. He needs too long of a run. The Spider Rider is capable of staying on top of him and just keeping him poisoned and tied down on the ground. Now the rest of the heirs are lending their weight to the battle, reducing enemy armor even further. And now Lewin is just shattered. He's not able to take off. My opponent does throw a handful of Hippogriffs in here, but they're not really able to do very much. My opponent's army completely shatters. So a little bit again, I did want to discuss, like, if you're gonna do, I'm just gonna say, if you're gonna try to do a bit of a trollish build, as generally, like, with this sort of air spam against, say, Greenskins or Undead or whatever, it's generally a good idea to run Lore of Life. Most of these units won't lose models too quickly, not even the Pegasus Knights, much less the Royal Hippogriffs. So if you have a regrowth or a Earthblood, it can be very powerful. The other thing is, if you're worried about air units, do bring foot-based lords. Don't just let your Orc Lord get swamped. I figured I couldn't defend him. Originally it was vampires, but then I figured I couldn't defend him against Brettonian either. I brought Skarsnik. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Skarsnik. Grimgor can be fine. You can even bring Azag or Wurzag on foot, or on a boar, or an Orc War Boss on a boar, something like that. You can bring really anything you like, but if you suspect that your enemy is going to go very heavily into air, or can potentially get a very strong air contingent, don't fall into that as orcs and just let them smash you, especially if you're not doing hordes of archers. And my only archer contingent here is the Rusty Airs, who actually raked in 6 kills against pretty high-end units. I think this also shows the value of poison against air units. If it's an air unit that has to engage you, which is almost all of them except Elven Hawk Riders and Dwarf Gyrocopters. So if it's a unit that has to engage you, poison is very good. If you can poison them, anything from dragons to hippogriffs to all that sort of stuff can just bog them down. Can just be slowed down with poison and prevented from escaping. I was definitely regretting the fact that I hadn't brought Gorkle Fix-It to slow my opponent's units down, and not bringing more Goblin Archers with poison, because if I had that poison available, they would have really been able to just slow these Pegasus Knights down, slow these Hippogriffs down, and prevent them from escaping in some of those earlier situations when they just busted out of my infantry line and got away. Things really started changing around once I got the Night Goblin Big Bosses on my opponent, or they dove into the Fanatics, who could poison them and slow them down. Or Skarsnik, for that matter, who slows poison. Definitely, I think this is a pretty solid. I think this is a pretty solid comp with vampire counts, because the psychological immunity in Savage Orcs means you're not likely to get any sort of rout. And if very early on, if your opponent's just kind of cycle charging into you, making these quick darting moves, because your morale will always recover, or mostly recover. And it's really important if you with normal orcs, if your units rout and if your units shatter to a terror bomb, so you had normal orcs or normal goblins, this would have probably all been over, because these guys would just get scattered. I wouldn't be able to protect them. They do get picked off and ultimately forced to shatter by pursuit from the Pegasus Knights, by pursuit from Lewin, by maybe even pursuit from the Paladin, who could get gutsy enough to go after them, and that would have been game over for me. But because I was able to keep these guys, but because the psychological immunity on the Savage Orcs and the Black Orcs kept them in the fight so long, I just didn't have any problems with that, really. So that's definitely something to look out for. Psychological immunity is very useful. Poison, very good against air units. And if you're gonna bring a troll build, bring a Lore of Life. I'm definitely, as far as this comp goes, I was definitely happy with Skarsnik. Skarsnik, once he got on top of my opponent, that anti-large bonus just doing work. 11 kills, that 390 armor piercing damage with Gobla, just ridiculous. I didn't get much use out. I didn't get like any use out of Skarsnik's spotter, unfortunately, but which would have been fun to use. I was hoping to use against Brettonian infantry or undead infantry originally, but it didn't happen. Night Goblin Shaman, pretty useful. That sneaky stabbing and Itchy Nuisance definitely helps your units stick in the fight, or stick in a long fight and win. Would have been nice to have Gorkle fix it, as mentioned before. Goblin Big Boss is very useful for that poison. Night Goblins, I think, didn't really do very much. I think they didn't even get attacked that whole game. There wasn't much they could do. Savage Orcs doing work, and as you can see, the kills are pretty well spread out. All these units are not terrible against cavalry. Not great if it can keep cycle charging you, but not terrible. So yeah, and for my opponent, those Royal Hippogriffs, of course, did a lot more work. They have armor piercing, so they were able to do more damage to the Black Orcs and that sort of stuff. But yeah, good game to my opponent. I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like or subscribe below. If you have any comments, criticisms, any questions about the game, any ideas on comps or units you'd like to see run, be sure to share those down in the comments. I'll be sure to respond as soon as I possibly can. As usual, I appreciate you all for watching, and Wyvern out.